Hey guys, welcome back to Coffee and Crystals. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe to the channel and then ring the bell so you're notified on episodes. Hey everyone, you stumbled across Coffee and Crystals. I'm Katie Chronister, your motivator and host. And on this spiritual podcast, I will share knowledge that I've gained through a highly caffeinated life, as well as my journey here on this earth as a yogi. While we'll be exploring my love for all things crystals and wellness, I'll also be introducing you to some of my good friends, mentors, gurus, family members, and other key influencers who have really touched my life. In every episode, I invite you into my heart, and I really look forward to this adventure we're about to go on together. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee, stay hydrated, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi guys, welcome to Coffee and Crystals. I'm excited about today's episode because you get to meet my sister. And in this episode, my sister brought up the fact that she felt like she had trauma brain. So I looked up a crystal that could help with that. And I also searched my house for this crystal in my house. And all I could find were these little earrings that my ex-boyfriend gave me. This is emerald. So the emerald is this like beautiful green color. We've definitely talked about this on the podcast before, but I'm bringing them back up. And when I was reading more about emerald, I had another aha moment that this is the perfect crystal for Julie because it said that this was also healing for somebody who had epilepsy. And my sister, who's been through it all, has a best friend that she grew up with that really struggled with epilepsy. So I hope that you guys enjoy this show and get yourself an emerald and let's heal together. Okay, let's see if I can get through this introduction without crying. I can't believe that I haven't had Julie on the show before now. Julie Bender is a wife, a Christian, a mama of two. She calls herself a diva, which as her baby sister, she was never a diva when she was younger. She kind of grew into this diva lifestyle. Julie's brilliant. She's one of the smartest people I know. She's the strongest person I know. Julie and I did not have it good as children, but even as a child who was going through some of the very same struggles as her, I always felt like she had it worse. You know, Julie was picked on a little bit more at school and at home. We grew up in the same room for over 15 years together with my great grandmother, and although we knew we had an older sister, Sarah, that lived in Pennsylvania, we didn't know of her until we were older. Really, high school and college is when I started that relationship. And then I found out I had another baby sister, the real baby of the family. But Julie was always constant to me. And not because of anyone's fault, you know, it was just our story. And our bond is unshakable. There's the tears and the emotion because there's no one like Julie in my life. She's very nurturing. She's very grounding. I used to really look up to her. She got us our first jobs. This was in middle school. She convinced a gym to let us work under the table. She was always hustling jobs in the neighborhood. If it was babysitting or house sitting, she always found a way. And I just always looked up to her. She was able to concentrate in school and get good grades. And it was something that I always aspired to be. And you know, as I grow into this podcast world, she was the leader in that. Before anyone I knew was doing podcasts, Julie was a co-host on a podcast, and now she has her own show. And I could do the whole podcast on the introduction of Julie Bender because anyone who knows her knows that she is a blessing in their lives. And I get to call her my sister. So let's call her up and make sure you give me some feedback. And this isn't it. You know, I had a psychic tell me that Julie and I should be working together more. It's been really hard for me to put in words my story because I want my story to be a story of inspiration, not just entertainment, not just storytelling, but I want it to be a purpose. And when I talk with Julie and we kind of download what's going on in each other's lives, I always hang up the phone feeling more spiritual, feeling more love, feeling more grounded into my purpose. And that's really my purpose for this episode, that, you know, if you have a sibling or a sister, maybe you'll give them a call, maybe you'll do a journal prompt on your childhood, because we talk a little bit about memories of childhood. There is some trauma chats in there, so something that you can relate to, and pick up the phone, call your sibling, tell them that you miss them and that you love them. And without further ado, Julie Bender.
Julie Bender. I almost said welcome back to the show, but you haven't been on the show.
Wait, really? Oh,
I know,
that's so embarrassing. I
think
mean,
it
thank
feels
you,
like-
finally.
I know. Thank you for joining. I think it feels like you've been on because you set up Lincoln twice now.
In spirit, I have been.
Which, by the way,
a part of my heart has been on the show. Isn't that what moms are supposed to say?
Which, by the way, after this, we need to talk about, because my 3-year is coming up in October, which means I need to get Lincoln back on.
100%.
Off the air.
Oh, and he will have a lot to talk about, but can he please stay out of my episode at least?
Yes. Okay. Exactly. Well, welcome to Coffee and Crystals.
Thank you. Brought my coffee.
I'm excited.
I don't have crystals.
So many people that are following me have reached out to me many times talking about you. So now my listeners get to officially meet Julie Bender.
What's up? I'm here. Let's do it. Let's do all the things.
All right. Well, we have to make it about the baby. First question first. What is your earliest memory of me? And why I ask this is because Uncle Bill gave me a homework assignment to start writing chapters about the first time I met my sisters, because I was talking to him about being in a writing funk, and he's like, write about your sisters. And I was like, that is such a good topic. So
yeah, I was looking at the questions you sent me, and I'm like, why do I not have immediate answers to this? And I'm like, is this mom brain? Is this 7 a.m. reading brain? What's happening? So, and what's super awkward is I have to pull up my email. Say it again.
Say it again.
I emailed myself the answers to your questions, and now I want to remember what I said about my first memory, because it took me a second. I'm like, that can't be the first thing that I said was peanut butter pals, and I'm like, come on, sis, you got to remember something before peanut butter pals. That was like 3rd grade, right? I don't even know when peanut butter.
Peanut butter pals once. One of my friends shared a story on Instagram that was like, Taylor Swift's fans are really listening to this, and it was a video of the Olsen twins singing like one of their songs from the album. I was like, I loved the Olsen twins. He's like, you would.
Yes. So that is definitely an early memory. But certainly I remember you before then. What the heck? Like, that was when you were really coming into your own.
Tell my listeners exactly what the peanut butter pals
Okay,
was.
so we want to just go with, okay, so Peanut Butter Pals was your first girl band. So you and a couple of your friends, I don't actually remember how many there were because it was you and your friends, got together and you would choreograph and lip sync to the Olsen twins musical offerings at the time, which there were a lot actually, and you would perform these offerings, these choreographed numbers, little ditties at school. And I still think it's weird that they let you do that, actually. Like, right. You were like running the show then. You were a early entertainer.
I was thinking about that when I had Justin Newcomb on my show a couple seasons back. He was talking about how embarrassing it was, this style night that I made him and some other influencers do in LA, and I made them like do tricks down the runway. He's like, that was so embarrassing. I'm like, I think I've been embarrassing my friends all my life.
Well, you have been creating entertainment your entire life. That was one of my answers for a later question, so whatever. But certainly I think I knew you before that. So a memory before your entertainment debut. I feel like one of my earliest memories is us breaking our beds, jumping on them while Granny was away and Papa was watching us. And the hilarity of Papa watching us is he did not pay any attention to us whatsoever. He holed himself all... we would be jumping on the beds, doing whatever we knew we weren't allowed to do, because our great-grandfather with no legs was in charge of us. And he was in his bedroom with the door closed. Like, I'm sure they're fine. We were not fine.
Right? We did okay, so now you're triggering a little memory of mine. didn't we like get into all of Granny's Avon
Yes.
makeup?
So that's what I had. We broke our beds
all?
and we put makeup all over the hallway between our bedroom to hers, which I mean, there wasn't anywhere else, I guess, for us to put our art up. But like, what a stupid thing that we should have known was going to be real bad. I feel like we used nail polish and lipstick, like painted the walls with nail polish and lipstick. She was so pissed when she got home. Of course she was. I remember being like, I think Papa should be in trouble. He's watching us.
Was he in trouble?
No.
Probably.
I mean, probably, but I just feel like I was always in trouble. So that's probably what my brain remembers.
You were always in trouble.
100%.
I always felt like I was always in trouble, but your being in trouble will never stump mine. Like, you were definitely more in trouble than I was.
Well, I feel like I was always in trouble at home and you got in trouble out in the real world. Would you think that's inaccurate?
Yes.
So, I don't know.
Okay, that was kind of like you got me thinking, right? That was like a deep like reflection for me of maybe why I acted the way I did, you know, my act out at school or, you know, on the streets when, you know, you were such a good girl, but you were always in trouble.
Yeah.
You were always in the corner. Remember Granny used to put us in the corner all the time and like separate us?
Yes. Well, and I can to go super deep, super fast. Like I'm recognizing about myself, like I can't handle even now any negative feedback because I'm like, but I've been trying so hard. So if my husband doesn't like something that I've done, I hear you're worthless. Nobody loves you because I feel like my whole life I've been trying to do the very best possible thing and it's just never good enough.
Yeah.
Welcome to Coffee and Crystals.
Yeah. Right. So we'll talk a little bit about that. You know, I wanted to talk a little bit about triggers from childhood because that's something that I think we both have talked about with our audiences, but never really together recently.
Yeah.
But again, back to me.
Yes, please.
When you describe me, this is also more inspo for the book on the sisters. When you describe me to others, how do you describe me? You know,
okay, so
thinking about my own elevator pitch, I'm trying to also think about how other people view me.
Well, so when I'm describing you, it's to my friends, right? So like, oh yeah, you know, I don't know how many sisters, I forget, depends on the day, how many I remember to say I have, just being honest. I have lots of sisters, but like when I think of my sister, it's you. And then, oh yeah, but there's Sarah. And there's Anna too. I don't know. They might not like that, but I feel that's how my life unfolded, right? You were my sister. And then I got another sister. And then a really long time later, I got another sister. That's how it is, which in itself is so jacked up. But I digress. When I describe my sister, which is you, to my friends, I'm like, you think I'm fun? You haven't met Katie. Like, she is the funnest of fun. That's how I describe. Like, she's like me, but like way more and like way more free spirit. So that's how I say you're fun, you're entertaining, you're like me, but way bigger and better. That's what I usually say about you.
It's so interesting because when I think about you, I like kind of describe you in the same way. I don't know if I say you're more fun. I guess I hold that.
No, you're fun. That's fine. You could be the fun one.
I feel like you're bigger and better. You know, like I always am like all my life, I've always looked up to you. Like what job you had. You know, I would never could get good grades like you, but I would copy your homework or like old essays, just putting it out there.
Nice. Good to know.
Times by Aunt Andy because she was like, oh, this essay sounds a lot like Julie's that she turned into last year.
That's so funny. You've never told me that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever admitted it out loud, but I even was like, oh.
Can I get an honorary FSU like degree? I mean, I guess I got in on my own. Of course, they let you in too with the same essay.
Andy's like, you can't send this. Your sister sent it last year.
God, that's amazing. That is amazing.
But speaking of that, which isn't on the show notes, I'm actually very proud about how I got into FSU because
for sure.
Back in the day, you know, growing up in Florida, it was always kind of like dubbed as the easy school to get into, but I got denied twice to Florida State. So
but that's where you wanted to go and you made it happen.
I made it happen. And that letter that Andy called me out on, she kind of gave me prompts because we have a lot of writers in our family. You know, I mentioned earlier, Uncle Bill is giving me prompts for the sister chapters. Andy was giving me prompts for this college letter. And she's like, just tell your story. tell your story of why you want to go and what you're doing. And I just kept rewriting that admission letter. I did my first interview, I guess you could call it, my first like focus group with all the mentors in my life. I had Rick write a letter. I had, I forget, what is her name? Miss Camp, Chris Camp's mom.
Interesting. Okay. Uh-huh.
She wrote a letter. I had my boss at the Sanibel Steakhouse write a letter about why I deserved to go, and they let me in.
That's
but it
awesome.
wasn't because of my grades. It wasn't because of my SAT score, even though it was the easy school to get into.
Yeah. Well, it was your grit, right? It was your tenacity. It was like, no, I'm gonna keep coming until you let me in, which is a quality that people do desire and are attracted to. So good job, you.
Which I feel like I've lost a little bit of that. So I'm trying to like really like sit into that power and to like who I am. I think sometimes when, you know, people inspire me like you, like I mentioned, and I like to read books and listen to podcasts, but sometimes a big motivator in my life is to think back about how I did things in the past.
For
like,
sure.
That feels full of ego, or if that's more just like self-empowering, like, well, no, you're freaking Katie Chronister. You can make it happen. Do you have moments like that, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the fact that you wanted to have this conversation and I pulled up the questions, I'm like, well, crap. I'm like Little Miss, like living in the dumps right now. Such a great time to have me on. But I'm like, no, this is good to remember, like, because 2 years ago, I would have been like, boom, boom, boom. Let me give you all my answers. And I'm like, crap, what would 2 years ago me say? So I think that is one of our best tools, is to go back, remember, like force yourself to remember and re-acknowledge your successes, your weaknesses, all of them, and be like, I did it before. I can do it. It is in me. Like that was me back then. I'm still me now. I just need to re-tap into that power, that motivation, that desire, that willingness. Sometimes it's just a willingness. And I think there is power in acknowledging I'm not feeling myself right now, but that doesn't mean that my value is diminished. I'm just not feeling it right now. So to go back to where you felt your best is absolutely a smart thing to do in times like that. So that's why I didn't cancel the recording.
Because I feel like we're just so connected always. You said you're not really feeling yourself right now. I'm not either.
Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
I feel like I've been saying that even, you know, to people close to me for the last couple months, but it has been a season of like immense change for me. My confidence has been really low. All these different factors, you know, losing my job, having situations in my personal relationships that are, you know, different.
Yeah.
And it's been hard for me to motivate every day. So I've been seeking people like you to kind of like lift me back up and kind of give me fearless feedback that won't necessarily like have me crawling in the corner.
Yeah. And that's what we have to do. We have to be willing to trust people in those moments. But I think those of us who have that ability to be confident, when we lose it, we're like, oh, I can't tell anyone that I'm not feeling that thing that they love so much about me. So I think you and I know that people are drawn to our boldness, our confidence, our entertaining. And when we're not feeling that way, we're like, well, certainly nobody wants us around. Like I am holding back tears as I say that sentence. Like, well, nobody wants me to be around when I'm not going to be able to deliver those things that they love about me the most. So yeah. I just pull back into the corner and literally die a slow death. Also not fun. And then I have to be like, by the way, I feel like a real loser. And then they look at you like, what? What do you mean? You're not a loser at all. And you're like, but I am. You just don't know yet. You just don't know yet. Once you know, you know. So to do these things is actually the right next step. But it is really freaking hard to take the step. I have found.
Yeah, it's movement. That's just what I've been telling myself, like almost like an easier, although harder message to tell myself is just movement, Katie. Like just the process of like writing down the questions for you, writing a to-do list and checking things off, or going for a walk. It's all about just like forward movement to your goals. And sometimes you have to like really like go one step at a time. And that's where I feel like I'm at right now.
Yeah. And when you're used to running, or you're used to those steps being like in really cute shoes, like to take the metaphor a couple different directions, like No, I'm like literally sitting here in pajamas and having a very vulnerable conversation that's probably not going to hit all the points we said we would talk about. It's like, well, that's better than continuing to sit where I was.
Yeah,
So.
I love that. Circling back a little bit.
Back to you.
I know, right? Back to again, which kind of filter in through the entire episode. Who am I kidding?
I mean, this is your show.
What were your first memories of both Sarah and Anna? Because that's something that I've been reflecting on and journaling about and writing about. So, I can build these chapters out. But I'm curious if your first memory of Sarah is similar to mine.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting when you and I go back to common experiences we had and talk about how very different our freaking experiences were. It's weird.
We need to talk more though, more that I'm trying to write about it. It's like, no, I think I hid from our story for so long because it was so traumatic, and I was always trying to hide it. As you were, I always buried it down and like it didn't happen. That didn't happen. That wasn't me.
Yeah. Well, I remember meeting Sarah. My first memory of meeting Sarah, we were in middle school and she was in high school, but I don't remember exactly our grades. So she's 4 years older than me, 5 than you. So 4 grades older. I mean, I could have been 8th and she was in 12th, but I don't think that's right. I feel like it was like 7th and 11th. I don't know. But I remember the
younger, like in 5th grade. It just seems so odd to me that it had been all the way until middle school.
But here's the deal. But I'm not saying that that's true. It could be that we met her before, but the one I remember, because I feel like I don't have a great memory. I really feel like I don't. Like my husband will tell me first and last names of every person in the story that he's talking about. I'm like, you're way older than me. How do you remember all of those things? And like, who's done some drugs? And I'm not. And it's like, well, I don't understand how you remember. But I think my trauma brain blocked out so much. So my first memory of meeting Sarah, she came to visit and we went to the mall. And like, I don't remember her walking into the house or anything. Well, maybe I do. I remember seeing her and she had a head of dreads and she was wearing a tank top or something that revealed that she had hair under her arms. So she was old enough to have hair under her arms, but she was definitely in high school and she wanted to go to the mall and shop for a prom dress. And so I remember when she came in, I was like, whoa, she looks really different than us. I mean, we're pretty like young, and I had zero style whatsoever. So like she definitely had a personal style. I mean, dreads in itself is a style. And she was so hippie boho.
Yes.
And I just
like punk. I feel like she's more boho now.
Yes, that's true. Yes. I would agree with that.
But like baggy jeans, kind of like bad girl vibe.
For sure. And so she said she wanted to go to the mall. And I remember being like, oh, okay, a bit long beaded dresses or whatever. And she was like looking at like flowy sundresses. And I was like, do I not know prom? I just remember being like, this is weird. And she was like looking at wedge sandals. And I'm like, but I thought it's sparkly, strappy heels and sparkly dresses. Yeah. That's what I remember.
That's so funny. I feel like I remember the first time meeting her. It must have been this first trip. That sounds like it might have been the second time she came to Florida.
Okay.
The first time I remember meeting her, she was a little bit younger and she came with a flute. And I just remember being like, I remember thinking that was more girly than the instruments we were playing.
Was I already playing instruments though?
Was that you played?
Interesting. I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember?
And I'm the band person. That makes no sense.
Yeah, no, we have trauma brain. I just, on my last episode, I didn't this isn't the episode to even talk about it with you, but I had a breakthrough of something that happened to me that it's just amazing that the brain is able to protect us in the way that it does. Like, whoa, I'm 38 years old and my brain hid that from me this entire time. So you're not alone on the trauma brain. And I'm sure people listening to us, are probably processing that as well, because I think people get down on themselves. Like you said before, like, how come I can't remember that? What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should go to the doctor and get on ADHD medicine.
Right.
People, I think it's good to be aware that, there are traumas and things that you can heal your inner child naturally, and over time.
Yeah. Yikes. Well, I want to continue that conversation offline later.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. It's kind of like it's deep. But what about Anna? So switching back.
Okay, so that was the first time I met Sarah. The first time I met Anna, I mean, I feel like any conversation is a full episode. Do your people know who Anna is and that like we didn't know her for our whole lives? It's so weird.
It is so weird. I first met Anna in college, my last year of college. And Anna is our stepsister. Is that what it'd be called?
Oh my God, I love you so much. No, she's a half sister.
Half sister. Stepsister.
What up, sis? Because she's going to hear this and be like, really?
I don't think she'd know either.
Well, actually, she would, because when I first met her, I introduced her to my first husband. And I said, this is my half sister, Anna. And she said, well, I just say sister. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I've never had a half sister before, but you have lots of half sisters. Is the truth? I think she has a lot of half siblings.
Oh, okay.
Think about it. She's like, I bet all of her siblings are half siblings.
Well, she does post a lot on Instagram about being with her sisters.
Yeah, I'm like, who are those people? Are they my sisters?
Also, just took that as like her sister.
Oh my God, no, I think they're her actual half sisters. Maybe stepsisters, some of them. I don't know.
Got it.
So the first time I met her was at Mom's house. She came to visit, and I'm trying to think if it would have been shortly after. I think you all met her, and then a significant amount of time passed before I could meet her, because you guys were all up there in that area. No, you would have still been in Florida. Okay, here's the deal. I was like living a very small, boxed-in life, and you guys all got together a lot more. Like, the truth is I spent significantly less time with everyone in the family than everyone else.
That doesn't mean that I remember a lot of it.
Yeah, well, I would actually 100% not be surprised at that. So, yeah. But I know I met Anna last, but I remember thinking, okay, well, maybe I can be close with Anna since everyone else is close. Talk about being like for real right now. I'm like, you and Sarah seemed close and you and Mom seemed super close. And of course, Mom and Sarah were close, but I was like the other one. I was like the goody that nobody like connected as well with. That's what I perceived about myself. So I was like, maybe I can be close with Anna because she seems to like really be into faith, which I realized later that her faith is very different than mine, which ended up being a little bit of a thing. But when I met her the first time, I was very excited because I'm like, maybe we can be close. And I could not even hear what she was saying because she was like J-Lo Katie. When I looked at her, I was like, this is the weirdest, trippiest thing. You are my younger sister, but with like J-Lo filter. She was Hispanic Katie to me. And I was like, this is so freaking weird. How has this person been on this earth all this time? And I didn't know she existed. That's freaking weird. Yeah. And she's literally has our mannerisms, but did not grow up with us. And that I remember thinking that was weird about Sarah too. Like, this chick is so different from us, but I can still see some of our mannerisms. And I'm like, wow. DNA's weird.
That is so funny. I do actually remember. I remember something. I remember you telling me that before about Anna.
Yeah, I'm just like, I couldn't. She was talking and I was like, nothing is getting through because I was like, I remember being like, close your mouth to myself because I was like, oh, this is so weird. So weird.
Yeah, so thinking back to the goody comment when you said that was just in your thing, I actually think that was a part of, I can't speak for everyone else, but I actually think there is a little bit of truth to that. You said like, that's just how I felt. It's like, no, I think that actually is how it was. I think that there was this element of, you know, my party girl era, or I guess you could call it bad girl era. I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable telling you what I was up to because it,
for sure,
like it was bad. And I, you know, didn't want to upset you or disappoint you. It was almost like you were like a mother figure to me.
For sure.
I mean,
well, the truth is you and I, the way we grew up, I did feel like, I mean, I was classic older child, you know, so I was older childing you, but add in the layers of dysfunction of what we were going through. I did feel like I was responsible for you in a lot of ways. But I took the reason that we weren't raised by our parents, that our parents were drug addicts and were children. The truth is it's not even that they were drug addicts, except they were children having children. But oh, by the way, children heavily addicted and unable to care for other people. I'm sure Mom would want me to add in that our dad was incredibly abusive and all of his issues that we don't even fully understand because we've never met him. Have you met him?
I have not.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, I mean, I don't even feel like I can accurately portray what he is since I don't know him from nothing. But
right.
my
mom She's just not ready. But I was
I
like, the
know.
more you talk about things, when she does talk about it with me, it's usually to like correct me on episodes like
100%.
this.
100%. And
Or
that's
I'll like,
not truly ready. Love you, Mom.
she's just not ready. And
Yeah.
that's fine. But I think that it would be probably really helpful for both you and I, just from this conversation, of sometimes just connecting the dots and erasing memories that I thought were true, and like, getting the truth. The truth.
Well, yeah,
is,
just getting somebody else's perspective.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I know that my childhood self tried to be good enough to make up for Mom's and our dad's, but I'm like, he wasn't in our life, so he doesn't really get a vote. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, people still knew of our mom. And Granny would hold our mom's actions over our heads. At least I felt like she did. And so
Absolutely.
I worked my persona, my life goal was to be so good that I could out good our mom's bad. Yeah. And I wanted to be good so that it could make up for what she wasn't good. And I can see now that that's not my job, but it became my job. And then with our cousin being so unhealthy, and I was like, I got to be the good here. I have to be the good. And then I did come to my faith at a young age, and I wanted to honor God, and that's like even more important than being good for Granny. You know what I mean? So it's like I just had a very heavy intentionality of being good. And I could sense that, you guys, you had that more free spirit, that more party, mentality, and I just felt like we couldn't relate in some ways as much as I wanted to. I'm like, but we're just different, and I'm living a different life. And I lived a much smaller life. Like I've never left our hometown area. I'm still living within 25 minutes of where we were raised. I've just always lived here.
Have that in common. I mean, yeah, she's probably done a lot more like globe trotting than you, but I thought about, honestly, Anna too. I was like, I'm the only sister that really like,
yeah,
just kind of, where is she living next?
Yeah.
But Sarah lived around where she grew up. Anna's still around where she grew up. So just so you know, as I'm writing this book, I can start to have like similarities between the three of you as well as differences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I was just always literally a runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been running to the fact that sometimes I catch myself. Like I just caught myself doing that this week. It's like, Katie, you're running away from the problem. Ground yourself and focus. So,
well, and to come off of that, like if you can see yourself as running, I think I've searched my whole life for security. So maybe even staying in one place is an embodiment of seeking security and roots and like stability, foundation. Like I'm okay, So.
Yeah, which is something that I'm really craving right now. I think that was, I've been going back and forth about moving to the East Coast. And as much as I still see that very much in my future, I like manifest. I can see it clearly that I will be back on the East Coast. But there's just this element of the season that I need roots right now, not necessarily because I need to be in LA creating roots. I personally need to be in one place at one time, because even though I've now lived in Southern California it's going to be 8 years this January, it really is only this past year that I've actually been rooted in Southern California. But one thing that you said that I wanted to kind of circle back to is just talking a little bit more about like happy memories of us as kids. I think that there were so many times that you and we talked about Granny having the worst babysitters because we were always up to no good, monkeys jumping on the bed. But there was just this element of like boredom I always felt as a kid, but you and I were super silly, and we had like really great imaginations, which all kids do, but I think there's just these elements that people that grow up with money perhaps, or like all my friends would be like in soccer or dance.
Yeah, they could do activities and we didn't.
You and I created our own activities. So what are some of your favorite memories of some of the activities that we did as kids?
Well, I remember, we played outside all the time. She definitely, I'm like, was that just the 80s, or was it like Granny was like, get away from me?
I think it was the
Both.
80s. And so I'm going back to like the most physical thing I can think of, which is like no finances. So it's like, what else were we going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we would like roller skate and ride our bikes around the neighborhood. Like we were always playing outside, always, 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 which is hilarious because I hate being outside now. I'm like, it's hot. I don't want to be outside.
Did you like it when you were a kid? Do you remember like loving those memories?
Well, yeah, I mean, but I don't think I don't know that I would know to say if I didn't like something. Like it didn't matter if I didn't like something. I didn't like a lot of things. It all still happened. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know that I would have like felt like I had a choice. Anytime I tried to assert my choice, it was like reminded that you have no choice. So I don't think I have memories of feeling like I didn't like what we did. I mean, we played outside. We definitely would come up with like choreographed things, you know, like roller skating songs, and we made up little shows.
Heather,
we did what?
I always say that you and I started podcasting together. When we were
I mean, we would pretend that we had a radio show, right?
Yeah, for hours, and we would like re-record, and we would do commercial breaks, and then we would put on our songs, like, you know, obviously the Olsen Twins or Paula Abdul, I remember, and we would like mix it and then act like we were true radio hosts. I was like, oh my gosh, and here we are today, still playing radio hosts.
Okay, so sad. I don't really remember that. I mean, I remember that we would like play and like listen to music together, but I don't think I remember that. And that's freaking sad. Go us.
It is sad. I talk about it all the time on my podcast of like my early days of podcasting with you, that you were always like my inspiration and the first person I ever podcasted with, which I can't believe it's almost year 3 for you to be on the podcast. But
yeah, what the heck? That's so fun. I mean, I definitely feel like those like performance type things, we definitely have always created content, whether we had an audience or not.
Hey guys, I wanted to jump in real quick and talk about the Modera product that I am loving this month. I just got a restock. I'm obsessing over the sunless tanning foam. You've heard me talk about it before, but I love pairing it with the body firming foam. I just got back into the gym. I've been in the gym. You guys know I work it, but I mean like back into high intensity workouts. So this body firming is just gonna help my skin firm up with the workouts. Also getting back into the AM and PM routine of my skin liquid collagen. It's medical grade. It also helps with hydration, reducing wrinkles. This is really great to lubricate your joints. I really, as I was like doing more squats in the gym, I could like feel my joints needing its collagen again. So I'm super happy to have this back in my routine. And then this eye gel, like this is just such a game changer. I don't wear a lot of makeup, but I really do like to make sure that my eyes are depuffed, and you know, I put on my brow in the morning, and this is just like a have to have it every day. Like, where's my eye gel? It's all clean ingredients. And of course, I'll put a discount code so that you guys can try these products too in the show notes.
And we would like watch movies and read books. And then I think this was more so me. I would write the script in my own words, like, you're going to be Bella, or not Bella, sorry, that's Twilight. Belle from Beauty and the Beast. But I would like rewrite it in my own casting.
Interesting.
Do you remember that? And then we would get Jamie to be like an actor in our skits.
No, I just remember, I do remember that we had like a spaghetti dinner at the neighbor's house. The Togweilers, like you and me and Casey created a performance, and we made the twins, the younger boy twins, like serve the food, and Granny actually came, and our parents, you know, her parents and our parent Granny watched our show together. I remember that.
Yeah. I thank you for reminding me that, because that is so freaking adorable. And it's interesting that you brought them up, and it's probably because I knew I was talking to you and just like memories were flowing. But I thought of the Togweilers this morning when I woke up. It's almost like knew or manifested that they were going to come up in the show. They were our neighbors. They did so much for us growing up, and they had 3 kids, 2 younger boys. They were twins. And I was thinking, where is Craig and Sean? And where is everyone?
Do you know? Okay, so Craig lives still in Fort Myers, and he and his wife own a burn boot camp and are about to own a second location. So I reconnected with Craig because his wife,
Burn boot camp,
right? So his wife became one of my trainers when I started with Burn at the first location I started at with Naples, and then she went to my current location. Then she started her own, and like literally it wasn't until she started her own and I was at her gym, because I never knew her last name. She was Sydney, and then I followed her on Instagram, and her name was like Sid Tog, and I was like, Tog, and then she's like, you know, Togweiler. I'm like, Togweiler. Like, I literally saw an Instagram post and I was like, oh my God, that's Craig Togweiler. I know him. Isn't he still 4? How is he old
like,
enough to be married to you?
That's how I think of
Super
your son,
weird.
Lincoln. That's how I think of Aiden, our cousin. And definitely the Tugweilers. I'm like, they're still babies, twin babies.
Yep.
That family did so much for us, as
For
well
sure.
as so many is in our life, which kind of brings up my topic of mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I really have pinned you as one of my first mentors, which we've kind of touched on a little bit. You know, your ability to want to be good that you talked about was such a blessing in my life, because I think that I had that fear of never wanting to be like our mom and dad. And, you know, Granny did a good job of scaring us,
Mm-hmm.
but I also, you know, had some bad influences in school and wanted to be cool and wanted to do what they were doing. But I think that you did a really great job as a sister, as a mentor, to ground me. They always found us jobs in the neighborhood. My first job at Gold's Gym was because of you. You found us babysitting jobs. But yeah, we always had families and mentors taking care of us, which was also, I feel like, another thing that you brought to us and brought into my life. So I know you have a lot because you're highly connected, but what are some of your very first mentors that you can think of? And then someone in your life currently that mentors you?
Yeah, well, first mentor would definitely have been my best friend from elementary school, kindergarten, literally all the way through college, Ryan, his mom, Linda. And so he was my buddy in kindergarten. And then that one random time we went to church with our neighbor girl, her grandmother was taking her to church, asked our grandmother, great grandmother, it's just easier to say grandmother, if she could bring us to church with her. And of course, Granny's like, anywhere anyone wants to take them, I'm fine with it. So she sent us off to church with the neighbor girl. And when we got to church, my little best friend from school was in the Sunday school. And I was like, this is awesome. So I was like hooked on church from that moment, because I was like, my friend from school is here. And oh, he has a family and he has a normal family. Super attractive, right? So I from kindergarten on, like immediately got kind of taken under the wing of that family. And I know you've probably talked a lot about your story of being taken under the wing of families over time, especially Rick and Ginny. Well, they were my family. Like they carried me from the second they knew us until literally through graduating college. His mom, Linda, I mean, she bought my first car for me, and I made payments to her because I couldn't get financing. And you know, when it was time to go to,
Granny ran into it. Remember that?
No.
You were parked behind her and she gave you
and she was mad at me.
And reversed into your car 3 times, your brand new Honda
Yes,
Civic.
I do remember that now that you say that, which is just psychotic, but that's okay. So Linda was a really big deal for me. She definitely was like the mom we didn't have, for sure. So that's kind of an early on relationship. Now, I mean, so when I looked at your question of mentor, I kind of thought of like both people that I actually know in real life, and then people that I don't. So there's like mentors that I aspire to be like, that I don't know. They don't know me.
Never met.
What?
I said Jay Shetty is one of my biggest mentors, but I never met him.
Yeah. Well, and I think in this day and age, it is normal to have people that you like really learn and model yourself after, that are through, you know, technology. And then, but I think you kind of have to have both. I mean, you got people who actually know your stuff too and can speak into your life. But I do think there's value in modeling yourself after somebody who has what you're looking for. So maybe to ignore the people who are like more models of people that I don't know. One mentor that's still involved in my life is actually my co-host for my original podcast, This Grit and Grace Life. I co-host it with Darlene Brock. And so she is absolutely a mentor of mine. She was a big deal in the music industry back in the 90s. And then
you guys were podcasting before everybody was podcasting. I always say that about you too. Julie was like the first person I knew with a podcast. Before I even listened to podcasts, you were podcasting.
Yeah. So like I got into podcasting it's going to be 6 years. Our show is probably 6 years old next week. I should definitely know that. I feel like we launched our show in September of 2017 because it was the year that Paul died. That's my first husband. So that was when I started podcasting, was back with her. And, you know, she kind of quote unquote discovered me and, you know, kind of groomed me and tried to help me kind of come into my own talent. So she is absolutely a mentor in like career, but also in just life. I get to see her this weekend for the first time in a while because she's seasonal. She's not always here. So I'm excited to get to catch up with her. So she's definitely someone that I aspire to be like, and has been a big help to me, specifically in the last 8 years of my life.
Yeah. So many questions there. And I feel like I want to tag in the show notes the beginning of the Julie Bender show, so people can hear a little bit more about your story starting at the beginning. So I'll tag your first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then when I'm back on the show, we'll talk a little bit more about Paul, your first husband, and just the impact that made into your chapter. But I want to just talk a little bit about your experience with branding. I talk to a lot of people about, storytelling with their businesses, and I do a lot of freelance and contract work in the marketing world, but I know that you actually went to school for marketing, and you have kind of been co-creating, directing on your own for, since 2017. So I think the biggest question I get, or the biggest feedback I have with clients, is everybody needs marketing, but nobody has the budget for it, or everyone thinks they can do it themselves, it seems like, but then never does it, which I'm guilty. I'll be, working hard on managing other people's social media accounts, and then I'm like, okay, what I've posted has actually been crap. What would be some of your advice or some of your takeaways when it comes to branding? You've helped brand the Grit and Grace, you've helped brand yourself, you have a couple catchphrases and hashtags of your own, be bold and just be you. I feel like I copied the name of my podcast. You started Coffee and Bible, and now I'm Coffee and Crystals. So what are your thoughts on branding in general, and especially someone that might not have funding for it?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest misconception is that you can be for all people. And so I think the number one important thing for branding is to figure out, one, what is your message? Get real clear on what your specific message is. And equally important, but second step is who is your audience? Because you have this message which you could deliver to the whole world, but the whole world will not hear you. So what is your message? And then who are the specific, what does she look like, your audience, or what is the type of person that you're trying to reach? Because you can only craft a message that will reach a certain type of audience. And yes, there are 7 brands out there that can speak to everybody, but most of us are not going to be that global brand that can speak to everyone. Right. There is Nike, there is Apple. But you know what? There are people who hate Apple. I don't understand it, but there are people who actually want to use Android. But anyway.
HP, right? In the social media content world, people think it's crazy that I create content on an HP. They're like, oh, you don't use an Apple? And I'm like, no, I have one.
But so there's an example, right? You think of Apple as a brand that speaks to everyone, but you know what? There are people who are not picking up their messaging. So I think the biggest thing is to really figure out, what is my message? And it's really freaking hard. For somebody who's wanting to brand themselves, to land on their message and then be okay with the fact that that message is not going to resonate with everyone. But once you can break through and really get to no, my message is for this, 25 to 35-year-old young woman who's been through this type of experience, who likes this, who doesn't like that, who struggles with this, but wants to be, it's getting very specific about what your audience is. And then you're just delivering messages to that person. And you're not worrying about the other people who are not going to get it. You're worried about the person you're trying to reach and speaking to them.
I love that. So I feel like you do such a good job of it, because even with your hashtags that I mentioned and Coffee and Bible, just to kind of circle back for people who don't know that, I don't know when you started that. Were you in college? You would make a post every single day?
I mean, it has to have been whenever Facebook started. It has to have been whenever Facebook started. I was definitely one of those annoying people who posted every single thing they were doing ever as a Facebook status. But I mean, that's what we did in the beginning. I think that's just what Facebook was. I just went to the bathroom. Cool. Yeah. That's my Facebook status. I don't know.
I share mine all the time. I was like, what?
I do love when you share your old Facebook statuses.
They're so weird.
It's so dumb. It was we treated it like Twitter, because Twitter wasn't a thing yet. Just Facebook, we just posted everything. So because I posted everything, when I was in college is when I started to get a passion for reading the Bible. And I believe the Bible pairs well with a cup of coffee. That is my
Which I said,
aspired morning routine.
Right.
I am drinking coffee. Yes. This is my second cup. I had some this morning with my Bible, and let's be honest, it was on my phone. I use the app on my phone now more that my life is too busy. But I would just share, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm reading the Bible and having coffee. And so it became something that I posted regularly, and it was partly an accountability for me. I wanted to be like, yes, I'm doing this. It was an accountability and, an encouragement to try it for yourself. And then I started hearing from people that that actually did make them want to check it out. So I'm like, well, if it's helping other people want to do it, I'm absolutely going to do it. Like I've had enough people tell me that they see that and decided to try it for themselves. I'm like, it costs me nothing to type out coffee and Bible every time I do it. So
love it.
So I've done that for a long freaking time.
You're forever influencing me. But I remember I used to try to be funny. I don't know if you thought it was funny. You can tell me now. I'd be like, coffee and bacon.
Yeah, you're trying to cut, because sometimes I would try to mix up my status. I wouldn't just always write out coffee and Bible. Sometimes I would put C and B, and so you would try to fill in the captions Carrabba's and I don't know, something else there with B, and I'm like, so funny
right now. But I just remember cracking myself up on the different scenes that I would do for you, and Mom would do it too.
I was gonna say, I feel like Mom did it too. Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure there was a part of me was like, are they mocking my faith? It's okay, I can handle the persecution.
Yes, we kind of were, but I don't think we were trying to be mean. We're just being family and poking at you.
For sure.
But yeah, what is your audience? Give me your elevator pitch right now.
Well, let's just go back to the beginning where we both said we're kind of just in a little meh season. So it's interesting that you would ask me that, because I feel like I have been in a do I still want to have an audience? You know what I mean? I have been in such a season where I'm like, maybe I just need a break from trying to feel like I'm always trying to communicate with an audience and just be me for a minute. And so I've been trying that. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't feel like I have gained whatever I need from that break to be ready to go back from not doing it. So to truly be able to answer what my audience is, I feel like I don't even know if I can answer that. But when I had an audience, when I felt confident that I'm speaking to, I was speaking to a woman who was a Christian, is a Christian, or is open to things of faith, but is maybe a little bit not sure what it all means, and therefore doesn't connect with clearly Christian content. So I tried to be the voice of yes, I'm a Christian. That doesn't mean I do everything right all the time, even though I grew up really trying hard to be that. But I recognize now that I'm just not going to be that. I try to be a relatable Christian, lifestyle personality where I make walking with God on an everyday basis seem doable. So I like to share, how faith affects my marriage is a really important topic for me. If I had, so if I had to only ever talk about one thing, in any of my messaging, it would be marriage. But I don't want to only talk about one thing. That's definitely it's one of my main things, but I don't think I would be fully fulfilled in only talking about that. But it is for sure one of my number one important things that I talk about. So I like to talk Christian relatable content that you might be surprised some of the things I say, because they're not as neat and tidy as a lot of other Christian resources. But when I was first married, I was turning to very conservative Christian resources that were recommended to me, and I just didn't feel like it fit my situation. And so I needed something that was a little more pliable. And so I decided to try to be that resource and fumble my way through speaking to a woman who really wanted the great conservative content to fit her life. It just didn't. And so if my husband's not participating the way the book's telling me I should, then what do I do? Me too, girl. Me too. So I'll speak to that.
Well, I feel like, sometimes Christianity, when you're not in it, can have such a bad rap.
100.
You know it. But I feel like the way that you've introduced me and evolved over the years has always made me feel comfortable. I could already cry, like feel the love and like the support. I knew,
I
I was
love
like,
you.
how come I haven't cried on this episode yet? You're just like going to church with you and being held with you and praying with you. It's just such a gift in my life. And I think it's just a huge connection that I have with God and who I believe God is. Definitely comes and shines vibrantly through you. And I know that so many other women and men as well, are just so grateful to have you as a leader in their faith.
Thanks.
I use the word spirituality a lot.
Yeah.
Do you use that word? What does spirituality mean to you?
I don't think I necessarily use the word spirituality unless I'm saying like spiritual health. To me, spirituality, when I use that word, that is a little more general, meaning any type of religion. And so to me, like spirituality and religion are similar. And in my faith, the word religion feels almost too like, I can't think of the word, like clinical or impersonal. So yes, my religion is Christianity, but I don't say I'm religious because to me, religious implies like a set of rules and standards that I keep, but it doesn't go into my heart. So for me, and honestly, that comes from my teaching. Like I was taught early on that like you said, a lot of times people can view Christianity as very judgy. And so, in order to, I feel like I have had the privilege of being around Christians who are real, but I also chose or was put into a faith environment, a church environment that is very conservative. And I think that served me really well. And I would still consider myself a very conservative Christian. But I also think my life experiences, I have found myself to be a little less conservative among the conservative people that I am connected and in church with, if that makes sense. But my conservatism would make me uncomfortable with the words of spirituality and religion because those seem too like clinical and not very personal. And I am grateful to believe that my relationship with God is very personal. And there are some standards that I think he wants me to keep so that I can be in right standing with him and I can have a safe life. But I certainly have messed up on so many of the things, and I believe he loves me anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, your comment about spiritual being clinically, I mean, I can sort of relate to that because when I use the word spirituality, so many different things, physically, mental, emotional, come to mind, and it can mean different things. So I'm trying really hard every day. I use the word to do something spiritual. And to me, that could be a nice long walk without music and headphones, really connecting with nature, a gratitude practice. Journaling is very spiritual to me. Just getting up and reading my C and B. I don't read the Bible, but I do read different texts, yoga texts, anything inspirational. Anything that gets me thinking out of self.
Yeah.
Spirituality to me. Even some days just making it to yoga is spiritual to me because I know that I can slow down and be quiet and think of something outside of physical external things, and really can walk off that yoga mat feeling myself again, feeling connected. I think something that I am struggling with is just like how I word it is trusting the universe, but really what that means is trusting in God and trusting in your path. So definitely someone like you and who's had so much child trauma, lost a husband, just so many different things going on that you have been able to overcome. How do you keep the trust in God and a higher power? Like, how do you know that he's there?
I love that question because it's something that it's hard to explain, but I also know it at the core of my being. Because of our chaotic, incredibly dysfunctional childhood, I remember when I had an experience with God when I was a teenager and somebody shared with me that God loved me and that I was a sinner, meaning I had missed the mark. I wasn't good enough for God, and that I needed to put my faith and trust in what Jesus did on my behalf, that his sinless life was lived and then he died on my behalf so that I could be right with God. When I heard that, I was like, well, I've been living my whole life trying to get back right? Like I've been being the good one in the family so that I can be right. And so now I'm hearing that I'll never be right, but Jesus was right for me. So 100% I want that. And so that's what I would say would be the moment where I trusted Christ for salvation. And then I began my relationship with God. I still had a lot more learning to do. I don't really feel like I truly understood that much until I got to college and then went to my second church where I was introduced to reading the Bible. And that's where I began to really understand more about God, to go beyond just that one moment. And once I started reading the Bible and being around other Christians who have what I would talk about as like a real everyday relationship with God, I realized I could hear him too. Like I could hear when I would read his word, I would just get like a sense of knowing that this passage that I'm reading that was written, thousands of years ago is like, it's speaking to me. Like my heart hears the words and I understand it on a level I can't otherwise explain, except that it must be God talking to me. And I remember looking back and thinking, it doesn't make any sense. Like all the stuff that we've been through, like how could I believe in God if what happened to us happened? But then I could only go back to, but I feel him with me. Like those things happened and yet God was with me. Like I can't explain it. And I hate sometimes that I can't explain it, but I also know that I know that he's been with me, and he allowed me to walk into the doors of that church when we were in kindergarten and then stay there until I come to a realization, 7 years later, that it's not just being at church, but it's having a relationship with God through Jesus that I need. Okay. And then give me another 3-4 years and, I need the Bible to understand how God speaks to me. And then when I start reading the Bible, the Spirit, God's Spirit, because he's 3 in 1, God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, his Spirit illuminates the word to me so that when I read it, it makes sense. I'm not just having coffee and Bible, but I'm hearing God speak to my heart. And there are times where I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I read a verse that makes no sense that I would have come across that verse. And I know that God's speaking to me through his word. And so I could look back on my childhood and be like, well, I felt like the outcast in our family because I was the church girl. But I also look at it and realize there's no way I could have survived what happened with my husband long before he died if I didn't have a relationship with God. And even though I felt like in some ways different in our family, I always felt close to God. And I always felt like he was with me and that he knew I felt those things in our family and even in my sisters, but that God still had a plan for me and he was with me in that. And I could trust him with those feelings even. Like I still feel like an outsider, but I'm not an outsider with God because he's with me and he's chosen me and he's walking with me and he's going to give me the grace and the strength, experience by experience, to walk through them. So like when I married my husband and then found myself in a really unhealthy relationship, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? This is horrible. I'll go find some good Christian resources. None of this speaks to me. Okay, I'll create a Christian resource. I'll create one. I'll be the everyday wife who's like, I know that I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, but he has zero desire to do any of it. So this is what I'm doing instead. And I think I'm still honoring God. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's like I have a personal connection with God that I experience through a variety of things, mainly reading the Bible, but absolutely being around other believers who know who he is and remind me of truths when I need to hear them.
Does this kind of make you feel like you have purpose, or did you kind of answer that in that other answer? Is your purpose? No, I guess that is the question.
I think macro level, my purpose is to know God and enjoy him. Like I believe as a Christian that God created us individually to know him and to enjoy him. So like my purpose is to be here and love God. Individually, how does Julie Bender do that? Julie Chronister did it one way. Julie Graham did it another way. How's Julie Bender supposed to do it? I have felt like, and especially when Paul died, Again, about me, episodes 1 and 2 of the Julie Bender Show. When Paul died, I was like, okay, so this is our thing, God. You just do like super crazy, hard to believe things in my life. Like my story is one that people continue to be like, I'm sorry, what happened next? Are you for real? For sure.
Feel people what's going on in my life, because I'm like, do I just seem like, oh, Katie Chronister has more drama in her life? Like, I think that's a reason why sometimes I hold it in, but then I have to remember, wait, this could be my purpose. God is using me to go through hard things. So I can be, I hate to say be bigger, but like do bigger things, as in for people who need relatable stories like
for sure. For sure.
Aren't in life. And I think, some people just have to go through these harder stories and go through the trenches so that they can help people navigate out of it. Do you kind of agree with that?
100%. So I came to a peace with my story being my purpose. Definitely after Paul died, I was like, all right, it is what it is, and then I met and married my now husband. And there are pieces of that story that have yet to really be fully shared. And I believe that one day they will. And people are like, you're freaking kidding me. And I'd be like, of course, that's who and what I would marry, because that's just how God works in my life. And I want to always just point back to him. Like, it doesn't make sense except for God. And with God, I can keep moving forward and trying to honor him in it and being honest when I mess up, and hope that somebody else can keep trying to go forward, because like, hey, I'm still messing up too. And I'm just limping my way toward moving on.
Love that. Well, Julie, it was such an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I feel like we just took a little stab at everything I wanted to ask you, which is great. That means that we can work together more, because sure. I just feel more in tune just chatting with you. It's been really great. Same. And I think that there's a lot of things that my listeners are going to take away and tweet about you or journal.
Is tweeting still a thing? That's a thing?
Threading.
Oh, that's right. I've heard that that's a thing. I'm not cool enough for that.
Yeah, I've been threading every once in a while, because I always like our earlier comment. Facebook was Twitter to me, and I think that I just liked always talking.
You like the status updates for sure.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn every day. I talk, and like so many of them, like nobody even engages with, and I'm just like, you learn from it, but I'm just always talking. But
that's good.
Anyway. I was hoping or wondering if you could end the podcast with a prayer.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, God, thank you so much for who you are. You are so good, and I see how you work literally in all things. Just this time spent together against the odds of technical difficulties. Thank you for answering my prayer, for allowing this to work. And so I pray specifically for the person who's listening today who heard something that they needed for their own soul today. And I pray that you would just drive that point home even now, just reminding them of the peace and the comfort they experienced in that moment, that it's real, that you were speaking to them, you were giving them wisdom and clarity for their next step. And I pray that you would give them the boldness and the confidence that they might have felt they're lacking, but that you are reminding them is in them, and allow them to move forward. I thank you so much for my sister and her resilience, God, and her tenacity and her fun and the personality you've given her that's allowed her to influence so many people, including myself, over the years. And I thank you that she is choosing to step forward moment by moment, challenge by challenge, seeking to be her true self and inspire people along the way. And I pray that you would continue to do that in her. And God, I thank you for the opportunity to use my voice and my story today to point to you. I pray if there's one who would hear about you today through my story and want to know more about you, that they would have the confidence to reach out to me or someone they know who has a relationship with Jesus to ask more questions, ultimately, God, so that more of us would know more of you. We love you, God. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I love you, sis. You're the best. You're the best sister. Don't tell the others.
They might see this.
I'm kidding. I've been watching Kardashians a lot lately, which, like, why did I ever stop? Thank God I got Hulu again. So I'm like back up on it. I'm like, see, sisters are fun, and they're all crazy. We're all crazy. Fun.
A mild like hater moment with the Kardashians. Which
well, is, I'm sure there's more that I'm gonna get there, but I stopped watching them for so long, and then when they came back, or I watched them again, I'm like, oh, I remember why I liked watching them. They're totally crazy, but I'm like,
I'm also like
have a couple applications out for skins.
Oh, nice.
Attention there, but I think it would be pretty cool to be in like a fashion forward brand, or just like, I don't know, do some content for them. We'll see.
Yeah,
But
that's awesome.
so thanks for that tip. We're the Krondashians.
That's
That was
right.
one of our hats.
Oh, I just remember catching up with the Chronisters. It was our little spin on that.
Krondashians is just what Mom would call us. But
I can see that.
So bold hashtag.
Hashtag catching up with the Chronisters. I still use it. Whenever I post something with us, I put it in there.
Me too. All right.
All right.
Love you, mean it.
I love ya.
If you haven't tried mushroom coffee, I've got a brand for you. So Mush Coffee is my new favorite brand because it not only has really organic, clean coffee beans, but on top it is given a little bit of boost by lion's mane, and lion's mane is really great for memory and for focus. This is just going to be easier on your tummy, so you're welcome. I swear to you, you won't even be able to tell the difference. And honestly, if you can you please let me know, because I would just like to know what the difference is. Maybe something in the notes, I don't know, we could talk coffee, but I will drop a link in the show notes to the website, and you will get a 15% off coupon code by using Katie. And remember, that's Katie with a D, Kadie in checkout. Thanks for listening.